Mr. Speaker, having listened to the first speaker, I too am reminded of a song, one by Lord Nelson, in which one of the characters that stood out was Will the Outrageous. Outrageous being the operative word. But I didn't come here to perform, Mr. Speaker. I came here to speak on my ministry's performance and my ministry's plans. I am not the performer. But I'd like to yet again express my appreciation to the hard-working staff of the Ministry of Finance for yet again preparing the annual budget estimates and doing so on time at the new time when we present our budgets, not April, but November of the year preceding that which we are budgeting for. So I want to express my thanks to the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Business has been allocated the sum of $2.65 billion for the year 2019. And I'd like to use my presentation to this House to explain what we are planning to achieve with this money. Mr. Speaker, the work that we do at the Ministry of Business and all our agencies is ultimately geared towards the creation of jobs by private enterprises, large, medium, and small. Whether it's through tourism or industrial estates or the promotion of exports or investment facilitation or small business support, at the end of the day, what we want to see is private sector development and growth, because this is where the bulk of the jobs needed by the tens of thousands of young people leaving school and other tertiary educational training institutions every year is going to come from. I'd like to divide my presentation into four main areas: business support and development, business facilitation, tourism, and consumer affairs. And for each area, I will summarize the work done in 2018 and then give highlights of what is planned for 2019. Mr. Speaker, starting with business support and development, the Ministry's Department of Industry, which is primarily responsible for the development and management of industrial estates in Guyana, has been working on the development of two industrial estates, one in Lethem and one in Berbice, for the last 5 and 3 years respectively. The works on the Lethem industrial estates have been completed on time, and additional works, such as a few access roads, will be completed next year. The total amount spent on that estate is expected to be around $1.3 billion by the end of this year, with an additional amount of $213 million to be spent in 2019. The estate occupies 28 hectares, and there are a total of 68 plots available for industrial use. An operations plan and a business plan for the estate are being developed, and a prospectus, including investor guidelines, is currently being finalized so that applications can be received starting sometime in January 2019, and leases can be granted before mid-year. Mr. Speaker, it should be noted that while we would love to, we do not anticipate to have the estate fully occupied anytime soon. Go Invest will be examining proposals from applicants because we are targeting mostly value-added businesses for the estate, or businesses that support such activities. And those types of businesses will generally require an investment agreement with the government of Guyana, which are normally processed by Go Invest, so that a single due diligence process will be carried out to ensure that companies have the financial resources to fund their proposed activities. Mr. Speaker, in addition to the available plots, there is also a business incubator being constructed on that estate, and this is anticipated to be completed by the middle of 2019. The estimated cost of this business incubator, which was started in 2017, is $272 million. And we project that by the end of this year, $159 million would have been spent, leaving another $113 million to be spent in 2019. The incubator will have 10 pods available for temporary use by incubatees for the purpose of starting up businesses from scratch. And the rest of the space will be used to create a supporting environment in which those businesses can have access to various services and training opportunities. The pods themselves will be fitted with basic equipment depending on the nature of the business activities to be pursued. Mr. Speaker, the industrial estate and the incubator are a small but important part of a bigger picture that depicts the new township of Lethem as a hub of business activity in Guyana South and a gateway to northern Brazil. With the long-awaited road to Brazil now clearly in sight, there is a renewed interest in Lethem, which must be harnessed and translated into investments and economic opportunities that can benefit the entire region. Mr. Speaker, a similar project, but on a much smaller scale, is taking place in Belvedere in East Berbice. A small area had been earmarked for an industrial estate, and some internal roads were laid down under the previous administration. Nothing was then done for a number of years. This was then brought to my attention by members of the Berbice business community, and upon examination, the Ministry of Business took a decision to complete this estate. And in 2016, we commenced works to provide concrete bases for electrical transformers, fire hydrants, and to build a security fence. It's a small estate with only 12 available plots. The only outstanding work now is to dig some internal drains and put some infrastructure in place for telephone service. This is catered for in budget 2019 and will be completed early in the new year. Mr. Speaker, the decision to include the business incubator at Lethem was actually a policy decision taken to include a business incubator on every new industrial estate in Guyana, so that these large capital outlays will also create opportunities for young entrepreneurs and start-up businesses. We therefore included a business incubator on the Belvedere Industrial Estate, which was started in 2017 and which was completed on October 31st of this year. It has 6 incubator pods, which will be operated similarly to the one in Lethem. A retention payment of $11.7 million is budgeted for 2019 and will bring the total cost of the Belvedere Business Incubator to $117,477,115, which is the original sum contracted. Both the estate and the incubator will be ready for occupation by the middle of 2019. Mr. Speaker, continuing on business support, I'd like to move to the National Quality Infrastructure Project, which has a total cost of $1.95 billion, of which we project that $88 million will be spent by the end of this year, and which has a budgetary allocation in 2019 of $360 million. The objective of this program is to support economic diversification and exports through the enhancement of the national quality infrastructure and the creation of a national export and investment promotion strategy. This project is implemented in 3 subcomponents. Mr. Speaker, the first subcomponent is institutional modernization and involves the accreditation of existing laboratories, the creation and operation of a network of laboratories, public and private, capacity building for small and medium enterprises, and the institutional strengthening of the Guyana National Bureau of Standards. The second subcomponent is improving laboratory facilities and equipment and involves the construction of a new laboratory for the Guyana National Bureau of Standards at the National Exhibition Center in Sophia, as well as filling some specific gaps in the capacity of some of the existing government laboratories. And the third subcomponent, Mr. Speaker, involves the design and implementation of a national export strategy and a national investment strategy, as well as the redesign of GoInvest's trade and investment framework. This is a multi-year project and is expected to run until the end of 2022. by which time Guyanese manufacturers and exporters will be benefiting significantly from the enhanced quality assurance, testing and certification capabilities of an expanded network of internationally accredited testing facilities. Manufacturers and exporters will also benefit from the implementation of the national export and investment strategies that form part of the last component of this project. Mr. Speaker, the Guyana National Bureau of Standards continues to play a key role in supporting businesses, not just by developing and promoting standards, but also through a variety of services that it provides, such as calibration of measuring devices used in the rice, sugar, gold, fuel, electricity, and retail sectors, training and consultancy services for businesses seeking ISO certification and laboratories seeking ISO accreditation, as well as product testing and certification services. In 2018, the Bureau itself received ISO 9001-2015 Quality Management System certification, a demonstration of its own commitment to the standards it seeks to promote. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, the main thrust of the Bureau's Standards Development Program was to support the construction sector, which remains unregulated and without a coherent set of enforceable building codes and adequate testing facilities to verify the quality of materials used in the sector. Local standards were developed for a number of electrical and other building materials, complementing the work done in this very critical sector in the previous year. In 2019, the Bureau will procure a consultant to conduct a situational analysis and action plan for the construction sector. Mr. Speaker, billions of dollars are lost annually due to the poor quality of products and services provided, and this study will identify the areas of weakness and make recommendations for correcting these. An action plan will also be drafted and a framework providing for regulating the sector through the use of updated and revised building codes and the certification and accreditation of testing facilities for construction materials. It is anticipated that with the establishment of a framework for the certification of practitioners, there will be a significant improvement in the delivery of construction services in the medium term, as well as substantial savings both by public and private builders. The sum of $14 million has been budgeted in 2019 for this exercise. Also in 2019, the Guyana National Bureau of Standards will continue to build its own capacity to provide testing and calibration services to a variety of industries. Through a capital allocation of $71 million, the Bureau will acquire a test bench for testing electricity meters, test masses in various denominations for calibrating scales and weight stations in multiple regions of our country, an impact tester for testing PVC, a hydrostatic pressure pump for testing of PVC pipes, temperature calibrators for use in food preparations and food processing industries, and scale and tape measure verification systems. Mr. Speaker, all of this combines to support businesses in delivering products and services of the required quality and standards to local and international buyers, while ensuring that imported items also conform to local standards. Still on business support and development, the Small Business Bureau is committed to small business development through training, access to finance, and improved opportunities for small businesses. These are the three main challenges facing small businesses in Guyana and are the main focus of the work of the Small Business Bureau. Mr. Speaker, as of November 2018, 948 businesses benefited from training in the areas such as soap manufacturing, sustainable mining, forestry, and cosmetology. The Bureau has also supported 387 former Gaisuco workers with training in plumbing, transitioning to farming, preparing loan and grant applications, catering, and sewing. Mr. Speaker, training will continue in 2019 with the Small Business Bureau playing a leading role in the Business Incubator Program. A total of $40 million has been allocated in Budget 2019 for furniture and equipment for the 2 business incubators to be operationalized next year. The Bureau will also be responsible for capacity building for small businesses interested in government procurement. This will include basic training for managing and operating a business, as well as sector-specific training, including green agro-processing, green agricultural practices, and the use of green technologies. A total of 18 million has been allocated to training in 2019, and a target of 660 trainees has been set. Mr. Speaker, as of October 31st, 2018, the Small Business Bureau supported over 200 businesses with access to finance by providing guarantees for 45 loans totaling $618,000 US and disbursing 158 grants amounting to $237,000 US. This support is estimated to have created 535 jobs. Mr. Speaker, while the disbursal of loans and grants under the Micro and Small Enterprise Development Program came to an end on October 31st of this year, the allocation of $100 million to the Small Business Development Fund in the 2018 budget allows the continued guarantee of loans and the disbursal of grants to small businesses. An additional transfer of $100 million to the Small Business Development Fund in 2019 will ensure that loan guarantees and grants can continue uninterrupted until a second phase of the Micro and Small Enterprise Development Program comes on stream. Additionally, the Bureau's in-school entrepreneurship program was expanded in 2018 and saw 104 secondary school students in the business stream receive grants of up to $30,000 each to pursue real projects related to their academic studies. $5 million was spent on this program in 2018, and a further $5 million will be spent in 2019, targeting a similar amount of students. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, the Small Business Bureau also set up a $12 million Green Innovation Fund to provide the sum of $1 million each to 12 small businesses with green, innovative projects. 6 of these have already been disbursed, with another 6 currently remaining. The sum of $10 million has been allocated for the continuation of this program in 2019, with 10 businesses expected to receive these grants. Mr. Speaker, the Small Business Procurement Program, aimed at creating more procurement opportunities for small businesses, has been completed and will be implemented in January of 2019. It will begin with a set-aside of all procurements under $30 million for approved small businesses, subject to the capacity existing within the sector. Mr. Speaker, I wish to preempt any unwarranted attack on this very important program by making it very clear from the onset that government is aware that there are many areas in which this set-aside will have to be waived because there are no small business supplies in certain fields. Government is also aware that even if all the procurements under $30 million were to go to small businesses, it may not amount to the 20% of total procurement. But, Mr. Speaker, this program is so important that it must begin, and we must start collecting the data to show what percentage of government procurement is going to small businesses, so that we can make the annual adjustments going forward until we hit the 20% target provided for in the Small Business Act of 2004. Mr. Speaker, capacity building is a very important component of this program, and the Small Business Bureau will be supporting small businesses in this regard. The creation of a framework for subcontracting to small businesses by the prime contractor is also being worked on. And if this can be achieved without clashing with our procurement laws and other best practices, this is something that will also be considered to improve procurement opportunities for small businesses. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, the Business Policy and Strategy Unit of the Ministry of Business, in partnership with the Ministry of Legal Affairs and with the support of the Inter-American Development Bank, has been instrumental in the development of the Movable Property Security Bill, which, when passed, will improve access to credit in Guyana by facilitating the use of movable property, both tangible and intangible, as collateral for loans and credit under a new system which protects both the lender and the borrower. The new system will involve the establishment of an electronic asset registry in 2019 by the Commercial Registry, which will allow a creditor to register an interest in one or more movable assets pledged by a borrower. Mr. Speaker, the Business Strategy and Policy Unit in 2018 has also been actively involved in the development of a green business framework for Guyana. This framework is intended to provide guidance on ways to incentivize and encourage the adoption of green business practices by Guyanese businesses, as well as to encourage investments in clean technologies, renewable energy, water services, clean transport, waste management, and green buildings. The framework is expected to be completed by the end of this year. The unit will continue to support the work of the ministry in 2019. Mr. Speaker, I now move to the area of business facilitation. As of October 31st, 2018, Go Invest facilitated 43 billion Guyana dollars in investment proposals through 30 executed investment agreements between investors and the government of Guyana. It is expected that these investments will create 770 jobs across various sectors once they are completed. Additionally, Go Invest facilitated land applications, paving the way for 9 projects valued at 1.2 billion Guyana dollars during the same period. It is estimated that these projects will create 337 new jobs once completed. Also, during 2018, 47 local businesses were matched with international companies seeking to import products from Guyana. These local businesses have already shipped sample orders to various destinations around the world. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, Go Invest also spearheaded the first ever Guyana Trade and Investment Exhibition, GAITAI, which was attended by over 100 international buyers and 56 exhibitors. Over 200 business-to-business meetings took place during the event, resulting in deals reached by 3 companies to date, while others are still in active negotiations. In 2019, Go Invest will continue to pursue trade and investment opportunities for local businesses and has budgeted $18.5 million for participation in trade shows and facilitating the promotion of local export-ready products and investment opportunities to international buyers and investors at such events. Additionally, the agency has budgeted $6.5 million for facilitating inward and outward missions aimed at exploring market and investment opportunities. In 2019, Go Invest will also provide training for 100 exporters to prepare them for international trading. Exporters are expected to learn things like costing, pricing, trade show readiness, B2B strategies, cluster and joint venture development. The sum of $620,000 is allocated for this in the agency's 2019 budget. Go Invest will also develop and print an export manual for distribution and online placement in order to help local businesses overcome export challenges. The sum of $350,000 is allocated for this in 2019. Additionally, the agency's website will be updated and made more user-friendly and interactive. An updated version of Guyana's investment guide will also be available online. The sum of $3.3 million is allocated for this in 2019. The agency continues to be an important port of call for foreign investors seeking information on various aspects of doing business in Guyana. And as stated earlier, its work is expected to benefit immensely from the national export and import strategies, as well as the institutional strengthening to be carried out under the National Quality Infrastructure Project, implemented through the Guyana National Bureau of Standards. Mr. Speaker, the electronic single window system is a project which I mentioned numerous times in this House before. It is a trade facilitation initiative that is expected to drastically alter and improve the way in which import and export transactions are handled by allowing users to access an online portal called the single window and submit their information for processing. Information is submitted once and is routed to all the relevant agencies for the necessary processing, resulting in a significantly faster, more secure, less vulnerable to interference, and more efficient transaction. Mr. Speaker, loan funding for the development of the electronic single window system has recently been approved by the Inter-American Development Bank. This project is expected to cost $6 million US. Preparatory work has been ongoing for some time now, with draft legislation already prepared and institutional arrangements established for the oversight of the project. A national steering committee as well as a cabinet subcommittee are in place, and a project coordinator has been hired as of November 15th this year. Additionally, a few of the agencies that will be part of the electronic single window recently participated in a study tour to Trinidad to have first-hand interaction with that country's single window system. Mr. Speaker, the sum of $100 million has been allocated in Budget 2019 for this project, and a number of technical areas are to be addressed over the next 12 months, clearing the way for the software and ICT infrastructure to be built and installed. This project is expected to conclude and be fully up and running in 2022. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Commerce of the Ministry of Business is primarily responsible for the processing of import and export licenses. However, the department also plays a facilitative role in other areas. For the last 2 years, the department has been establishing business registration hubs in some of the regions of our country where, due to archaic administrative arrangements, businesses were forced to spend an inordinate amount of time and money in order to complete their annual business registration process. In 2018, 3 additional business registration hubs are being established in Mabaruma, in Central Quarantine, and in Bartica. And this is expected to result in savings of over $50 million a year, mostly to small businesses in hinterland locations. However, the greater value created when businesses that would not otherwise have been registered are now integrated in the formal economy cannot be that easily quantified. Mr. Speaker, with the goal of equipping smaller enterprises with the technical skills necessary to operate sustainable businesses, the Department of Commerce has also facilitated training for small businesses in the area of record keeping in regions 9 and 2, in collaboration with the Rupununi Chamber of Commerce and the Essequibo Chamber of Commerce, respectively. In addition, 38 persons were trained in Berbice on marketing and sales strategies. This training will continue in 2019 with a target of 120 businesses. Training will also be provided to 100 businesses on the adoption and utilization of green technologies and sustainable business practices. The department has allocated a budget of $1.2 million for this in 2019. Mr. Speaker, in 2018, the department also conducted baseline surveys in all 10 regions to collect information on business confidence in our country for the development of a business confidence index, the first of which is expected to be completed in 2019. Such an index can be used to forecast the likelihood of recessions or expansions and can form the basis for early policy intervention to avoid undesirable economic outcomes. In its area of core responsibility, the Department of Commerce in 2018 was able to issue 97% of its import and export licenses within a 24-hour period. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to turn to tourism. In Guyana, responsibility for tourism development is carried out by the Department of Tourism and the Guyana Tourism Authority of the Ministry of Business, with the department being responsible for policy and strategic direction and the authority responsible for implementation in the areas of marketing, product development, licensing, and regulation. Visitor arrivals to Guyana have been rising steadily over the years, with the figures for up to September of this year showing an increase of 17% over the same period last year. Mr. Speaker, this is good news for Guyana because visitors bring money into our economy. Visitors have to eat, sleep, travel around town or the country, and each of these activities costs money and employs Guyanese people.
Honourable Minister, you have 5 minutes remaining.
Tourists also shop and enjoy local entertainment. So an additional 30,000 visitors arriving in Guyana this year means that an additional $15 million is circulating in Guyana this year, more than last year. If we are to assume an average visitor spend of $500 per visitor, which is extremely conservative, Mr. Speaker, and if we look at the figures in their totality, Tourism is expected to bring in around $150 million this year to be spent in our economy. And this does not include airfares or the taxes applied to airfares. Those taxes alone will bring in around $15 million this year. So what I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is that apart from gold and rice, tourism brings in the highest amount of foreign earnings into Guyana's economy. And this amount is growing every year at a handsome rate. So tourism is providing opportunities for Guyanese, in particular young Guyanese, and will continue to do so in 2019. Our government realizes the importance of this sector and its capacity to create and sustain employment. We also recognize the need to develop Guyana's tourism product to keep up with increasing visitor arrivals. And most of all, we recognize the economic opportunities that tourism can create in traditionally disadvantaged areas such as the hinterland, where our indigenous population lives. And this is why there has been a steady increase in the budgetary appropriation for the Guyana Tourism Authority from $123 million in 2014 to over $300 million in 2019. And Mr. Speaker, just as an aside, when I inherited responsibility for this agency, it had never, Mr. Speaker, I repeat, it had never, since its inception in 2002, presented to this Assembly its audited financial statements. It did not even have audited financial statements for the years 2002 to 2014. And we have had to spend an inordinate amount of time and effort going back and putting this in order. But we anticipate that sometime in 2019 we will finally be up to date with the annual reports for all the agencies of the Ministry of Business. And the Honorable Minister, former Minister, Member Mr. Ali, who spoke before me, and who heads the Public Accounts Committee, and who regularly interrogates our senior public servants, was the minister of the previous administration who was responsible for the Guyana Tourism Authority and the other delinquent agencies neglected during his tenure. Mr. Speaker, he spoke eloquently about missing vouchers and missing documentation, yet he presided over missing financial statements which are required by law to be tabled in this House every year.
Sweet lies.
Mr. Speaker, I raise this to illustrate the scant regard that the previous administration gave to accountability and transparency while in government, and to say to that political party that its record speaks volumes, lest they forget. But also to reassure
Honourable Minister,
this
you
House,
have 2 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But also to reassure this House that while we may be spending more money on tourism than the previous government, we are also ensuring that there is accountability and transparency in the spending of that money. Mr. Speaker, for 2019, the GTA and the Department of Tourism will receive budgetary allocations of $305 million and $93 million respectively. And I'd like to highlight the work of both the authority and the department in 2018 and 2019, so that this House can get a better understanding of how that money is to be spent. The main thrust of our tourism drive is to develop sustainable tourism in each of our 10 regions, starting with areas identified by local stakeholders as their tourism hotspots. What we are seeking to achieve is to make tourism a means of improving lives in the communities where tourism takes place, by making the communities the main beneficiaries of the visitor flows that they attract. To this end, the Department of Tourism has been engaging regional stakeholders in 2017 and 2018 in order to identify regional tourism hotspots. To date, almost every region has identified flagship national tourism projects and formed tourism committees, and the GTA will be working with these committees to support them in developing their projects.
Honourable Minister,
in 2018,
your time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.